Welcome to the Sports Idol podcast. This episode, we are going to take a deep dive. We're digging deep into recruiting and transferring, which is a very hot topic right now. And I've asked one of my friends and a former volleyball alum from Pacific, Susan Forbes, to join me and give us her thoughts and perspective on the two issues, primarily the transferring bit. She is a certified life coach and a recruiting mentor, which we are about to find out exactly what that is. But thanks for coming, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm very anxious to get this talk going and always happy to see you. I remember running into you at the Golden Sky Festival this last summer.
Good stuff.
And I was always there to see Eric Church, obviously. I will see him anytime and every time he's in town. I will not miss one of his shows ever. But opening for him was Lainey Wilson, who I'd never seen. And I saw her on Yellowstone. I'm a big Yellowstone fan too. But seeing her on Yellowstone, I was like, I gotta see this girl. Everyone's talking about her.
Right?
She's got a voice. She's got the whole thing. I need to go see what this is about. So I went, and in the middle of her show, I look ahead of me, and there's a tall head coming up. I'm like, who is that? Oh my God, it's Susan. I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we had to ask some people to move so we could chat.
6'1" coming through. Sorry, I gotta say hi to her. So I hate doing that. It's as embarrassing as it is to be 6'1" and moving your way through a crowd. Like, I had to go say hi.
Yeah, we had to say hi.
Yeah. So we do that.
Yeah, Lainey Wilson rocked it.
Man, I am on the Lainey train.
I know.
On the Lainey train.
She was just up there like owning it in her bell bottoms, a bright outfit. I was like, I need more of this. I want some of that.
Yeah. After that concert, I went and downloaded all her music, and now I know all the songs and all the lyrics. I can sing them all in the shower. Like, I'm killing it in my car.
Totally.
But I also love all of your posts, your Instagram posts.
Thank you.
They are pure gold.
Oh, that's so nice.
Fun. It's just, I see a lot of recruiting posts, but yours stand out because it's authentically you. And I don't know you personally because even though we're from the same program, I didn't play with you. But I know that it's always there's a connection because we chose the same program. We chose the same thing for probably the similar reasons.
True.
And your personality just comes out into those posts, and I think they're funny and they're on point, and there's no BS. They're sarcastic, but there's no BS to it.
Thank you.
It's real. It's really, you use different words. You don't use recruiting jargon that gets people kind of intimidated and lost.
Oh, thank you.
So I think the verbiage, even on your website, the way that you introduce yourself on your website is it attracts the young teenage mind. They can hear somebody like them speaking. So I think that's really helpful to them. I
appreciate that, yeah.
Your posts were awesome. In fact, one of your posts is the reason that you're here. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
It got some attention.
It got plenty of attention. It's going to keep getting attention too because it is still very new.
Yes, reels live forever, you guys. If you make a reel, it will keep showing up on people's feed a month after you made it, a year after you made it. So
it never dies.
Yes, it never dies. Yeah, which is good.
Yeah. So give us a little bit of your volleyball background, your playing stuff.
Sure. So I started playing volleyball in 5th grade. I'm from a small town in Southern California, Lake Arrowhead, and the high school volleyball team there was league champions, I think 15, 20 years in a row when I was a kid. So it was kind of the premier sport. The sport had a lot of eyes on it in a small community. So raised by 2 college athletes. So my mom took me to all kinds of sporting things growing up, and I loved it. I loved volleyball. I looked up to those girls. I wanted to be them. And I decided from a young age, I want to play. But at the time, I think the youngest, 5th grade was the first age, it was the time that I was old enough to actually be able to go and play. There was no 10s leagues or 9-year-old leagues. It was 12 and unders, I think it was. Yeah, okay. 12 and under. So anyway, so I joined that. It was terrible. My mom, I think, was smart in helping me pursue volleyball because she had a hunch I would be tall. Yeah. My dad played basketball at UCLA. Okay. He's 7'2". My mom's 5'7", and so I think she thought, okay, this could be a good path for her. I think she wanted me to play basketball. Never could get into it. So started playing volleyball. Started literally standing out. Freshman year, sophomore year, started getting a little bit better. ended up, driving down the mountain 45 minutes to play for a competitive club where I was able to kind of get the training, get the exposure I needed to be able to play at the next level. That takes me to college, choosing to play at University of the Pacific. When I was getting recruited, I cared about two things. I either wanted it to be a Pac-10 school, it was the Pac-10 at the time, not the Pac-12, or a top 25 program, and I held out for that. So when Pacific offered me, at the time they were like the number 8 school in the nation, and I was like, okay, this is it. I did it. Loved everything about the school, but really had no idea like things I should be considering. And I always say like I lucked out. It worked out for me. I had a great experience there. Loved the education. Loved the community. Like it was everything I was looking for without knowing what I was looking for. So
got it. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So it was great. I really loved that community, that school. Having the men's volleyball team was really fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how I met my husband, who's a men's volleyball player.
Oh yeah.
So we're college sweethearts. And then played at Pacific, played middle blocker. At the time when I was growing up, I was like one of the tallest girls in the gym, being 6'2". Now you go
still
in a
one
gym,
of the tallest, but
but now going in a gym, it's like there's girls that are taller than me, and I have athletes I work with that are taller than me, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". So tall, got put in the middle, which was great. Played middle for 2 years in college, and then I got moved to the right side, which was a good choice on the coaching staff. I got faked out a lot in the middle at the college level, so right side was
middles never get faked out. It's not what we do.
No, it was less to handle, less to think about, and I was good at attacking off like 1 foot and 2 feet, so I think I was like a versatile option over there.
Oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant. Now, did you play with my sister ever?
I did.
Okay,
yes.
So 2 years or
just 1 year. So
just
Megan was a senior and I came in as a freshman.
Oh, okay. So even because she's 4 years younger than me.
Oh, so you guys never played together? You had 1 year.
No,
oh, interesting.
When I graduated, she literally took my scholarship, took my jersey, took my locker.
Oh, how funny.
And got the Power Cat, all in one fell swoop. I'm like, really? You get all the cool stuff? But now I look at it as a huge compliment. Like that's very special to me that she would get recruited to the same school and play at the same place. But I get lost in who she's played with because we overlap. There's 9 years of Hochschilds there.
Yeah. Wow.
And John was only there until 2000, and then Janie took over.
Yeah.
So you must have been part of that.
So I remember my junior year taking an unofficial visit to Pacific and John giving us the tour, me and another teammate of mine. And then John left for Stanford, and then it was Janie who offered me my senior year.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And Janie was a middle. She knew what she's looking for. So she's like, she saw you and she's like, yes, bring that heavy arm over here, score us some points.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm not sure. I did my best, Janie.
She knows.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
She knows everything.
Good. Yeah.
So after your playing career, you got into, I'm sure there was some schooling and stuff. You went on and got your master's somewhere.
I did.
But where?
I got it at Pacific, actually.
Oh, did you? I thought you went somewhere else to get your
No,
master's.
I got my master's at Pacific. So my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, was 3 years behind me in school. We're only a year and a half apart,
so
but he was 2 years behind me, and then he redshirted. So there was a 3-year gap. So I was pretty sure this is the guy I wanted to marry. Wasn't sure if I wanted to go play pro. Had that typical, I don't know what to do with my life now that I'm done being a college athlete.
Yeah.
So spent a year wandering, kind of figuring that out, stayed in Stockton, and then I just decided, you know what, it's a great time to get my master's degree. Ended up working for the athletic department in marketing and promotions, which
convenient.
Got another degree that I didn't have to pay for, thankfully. And I studied student development and higher education. Okay. And then I was able to get an emphasis actually in student athlete development. So I was very fascinated by my experience as a college athlete and my experience transitioning out of college athletics. And so I just began to get really curious around why was that year and even years beyond that difficult, and began talking to friends who are college athletes as well, not even teammates, and they're like, I'm struggling too. So I got a little fascinated by that and wrote my thesis on the transition out of sport for college female athletes. At the time, nobody was talking about that at all.
No.
So
nope.
Yeah. So it was just intriguing to me, and I love what I studied, and crazy full circle, it's now brought me back to what I do today.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting that you bring up the transition out of college athletics for women. I think for everybody though, because that was so hard for me to transition away from being an athlete and to being a coach. I wasn't hesitant to be a coach, but it was leaving the athlete identity behind that was super hard, made life really, really difficult. lost my identity, lost my purpose, and I ended up writing a book about it.
I didn't know that.
I'm interested in reading your thesis because I'd like to see what you said about your transition, because your transition seems like it may have been a little bit shorter than my transition.
Yeah.
And every transition's a little bit different. But I mean, my book's not published yet. I need
an
editor.
Okay.
I'm going to self-publish it.
Yeah.
But I need an editor. It's got to get polished up.
Really cool. My mom's writing a book right now. Maybe she can help.
Maybe we get connected with her.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was writing my thesis as I was transitioning out, which is like an interesting perspective now. It's not like I was through it, but I was just like curious about it, made a theory as to why it was difficult based on what I was learning about student development and higher education. But sad story about my thesis. I actually don't have it because I had a hard copy 5 years ago. Our house burned down in a fire, and it was on my hard drive on the hard copy. And I looked for it because somebody reached out to me from college and was like, I'd love to read your thesis. And I looked high and low for it, and I don't have a copy of it, and neither does the university. So
oh no,
I know you guys just have to trust me that that I did the work.
Okay, well maybe you can, if my book isn't like quite polished enough, I'll help you co-write. You can co-write my book, and we can go in on it together.
Sweet. Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like your career at Pacific and this transitioning stuff, and you're going into what your master's was in, kind of primed you to go into this like recruiting mentorship and trying to get kids through to have a similar experience and be prepared for that experience. So why did you choose to go into that versus like coaching skills, coaching a team?
So after I was a college student, got married, I ended up actually being a head coach for a D3 program. So I did try coaching. It wasn't that I didn't like coaching, just at the time my kids were so young that I think I have 3 boys. So it was 3 boys under the age of 4. Oh. And so I was coaching club, also coaching in college, and just realizing like it's getting harder and harder to spend weekends away and spend 12 hours, in a gym in Fresno while my husband's home with the kids and everything that comes. And he was, super supportive. It was just hard for me. So that's how I transitioned into the recruiting side of things, wanting to still stay connected with volleyball. And I kind of made a proposition to the club director at the time, just being like, hey, I enjoy was already kind of helping girls get recruited anyways, talking about my experience. As you probably know, volleyball's, we both lived, it's a very small world. The longer you stay in it, the more people you know. So people would be like, how do you know, so-and-so, and how are you connected to this coach? And like, as our peers have gone up through their coaching ranks, and you stay in touch with them, it appeared to everybody that I knew a lot of college coaches, which was great. So they were like, yeah, totally. You can totally take over the recruiting thing. So I did that for a volleyball club for 8 years, and then stepped away around COVID. Just, again, kind of a family thing. Boys are home from school, not being able to balance it all. And I wanted to be able to give 110% to the athletes I was working with, and felt like I was pulled in too many directions. So I resigned from it. Around that time is when I found like the life coaching model. Okay. So I started working with a life coach for weight loss, and some of the things I was learning was like blowing my mind. And I was like, I can't believe that I've played and competed at a high level, coached athletes for as long as I did, and as long as I did, and never learned some of these concepts, or they were presented to me in a way that I was just like, this is amazing. So ended up, losing 50 pounds with her, and the easiest weight loss I'd ever had.
I was a teenager.
Or I know. Well, my 7-year-old weighs like 110 pounds, if you can believe it.
Whoa!
I know he's really
I can't
big.
believe that actually.
Yeah, but so I was just very like blown away at what I was learning, and at that same time is when the headlines on student athlete mental health and wellness were coming out with the athletes, the college athletes who had taken their own lives, and so I remember like sitting in our living room and kind of like looking down at some of my notes, life coaching notes I'd made for myself, and then looking at the headlines and being like, oh my gosh, college athletes need to know this. Like, this could help them so much. It would have helped me so much when I was a college athlete. And so from that point on, I began figuring out how can I bring this life coaching work into athletics. And so tried a few different things, thought maybe I'd be a life coach for college athletes. And then I had another aha moment where I was like, you know what? The recruiting process isn't easy. There's a lot of difficult emotions and challenges that athletes face in it, rejection, self-doubt, confidence, comparison, people pleasing, like all kinds of things that I was like, this is definitely relevant to life coaching. And so then that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to pair this life coaching work, this mentor work with the recruiting process and help girls not just get the result they want to play at schools that they love, but also be better prepared for it.
Yeah. So what, I've heard of the term life coach before.
Yeah.
I probably need one, or have needed some at some points, but I never actually looked into what exactly they do. And they certify people in life coaching. What is life coaching? What is recruiting mentorship?
I think that's such a good question. It's really making people aware of the decisions that they're making and the reasons why they're doing things that they're doing and the ways that they're acting, and empowering them to be able to choose something different for themselves if they want it. So like for an example, in recruiting, right? If I'm an athlete that maybe I just got rejected from a school that I was hoping to be able to play at, in the process, rather than them like without some support or life coaching on their side, right? They'll spiral from it, into self-doubt. Am I good enough? Is it worth it? Maybe this isn't going to happen for me. And in that process, they'll take themselves out of the recruiting process, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, while they deal with all the emotions that came from that rejection.
Right.
A life coach should be able to come alongside you and say, like, okay, this is a part of the process. It's still working. Here's all the evidence we have to show that it's still working. Here's what's happening as you're doubting yourself. You're no longer sending emails to college coaches. You're showing up nervous for these calls. Like, here's the result you're creating because of this one thing that happened. We can choose to look at that one thing differently and create a different emotion from the thought that we choose to think, which is then going to be able to fuel you forward. So it's really increasing people's awareness around what they're choosing to think, how what they choose to think affects what they're believing, and then their emotions are created from their belief, and then all their action is taken from their emotions.
That's brilliant, because it sounds like you're almost a psychologist without a psychology degree, but based on experience, and it's more believable. Because I've seen some psychologists be not so helpful because they're just ticking off all the boxes that they needed to graduate with a psychology degree, but they don't have any real life experience in those things. And people like you come along with real life experience that know what triggers the doubt and when it's going to come, and how to kind of battle through the doubt and the insecurity, because all that feeds into mental health as well. And we don't want to lose athletes. No. Like, we don't want them to give up or get behind. We want them to flourish so that they don't end up in a bad situation, or, God forbid, the topic of the whole thing is transferring. Right. We don't want them to do that.
Right, exactly.
So I think if people like you can come in and kind of shuffle that along a little bit and clear it up for them, that's super helpful. Is that the distinguishing factor between someone like you that seems a little bit more specialized or boutique-y in the recruiting realm versus like an NCSA or recruiting solutions type of like recruiting help?
Yeah, definitely. So families that hire me want to know what to do to get recruited, but they also want the support, right? And overcoming the obstacles and having someone believe in their daughter and having their daughter's back and calming their fears and easing anxieties and everything like that. So I actually work with quite a few elite athletes who people would probably say, like, well, you don't need a recruiting service, but it's not necessarily to get the athlete recruited. It's the people that want the support through a difficult process.
Okay.
Yeah. So they could create their options on their own, for sure. Are they creating the options that are best for them, the options that they want? Are they overthinking certain things, or, taking themselves out of things that they want simply because there's a lot of self-doubt there? And so it's just really giving the families clarity and support, and also kind of being like the expert in the pocket where, hey, if something comes up and your kid's nervous about something, or you guys have a question, like, you don't have to set up a special meeting with your club's recruiting coordinator, or you don't have to randomly, contact your NCSA person or ask your club coach or the parent who successfully got their kid recruited. Like, I'm just the expert in their pocket. So it's access to information. It's collapsing time, because I can kind of say, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. Sure. These are the questions that are effective. These questions waste time. So it's collapsing time for them, and then just giving them the support that they desire. Not everybody desires that support, and that's totally okay, but some families find it really valuable. Yeah.
Well, and I take it, after coaching at UC Davis for 8 seasons and being a recruiter for some time, now I'm on the opposite end of it, and I've been coaching kids for a long time. But I also see there can be some benefits to hiring a professional like an NCSA or putting money into a recruiting solutions type of like agency where they help make the matches. But do you think that they're probably effective for some kinds of kids that are looking for some kinds of things, but what types of kids do you find come to you for different things?
I think they just want more than what that service offers. They want personalized touch and personalized support. I think that those platforms are really good for researching schools and staying organized. I would, for volleyball at least, I don't think, I mean, maybe you have a different perspective being, like from the UC, so if you do feel free to say that being from UC Davis,
sure.
But I find that sometimes those recruiting services promise, make a profile and your kid will get picked up. I think, sure, make a profile, but now you got to send that profile to college coaches. You got to get on their radar. You have to let them know that you exist and that you're interested, and do it in a personal way so that you stand out.
Yeah, well, and I was a recruiter at Davis, and I didn't use those services as often because it required a password for me to log into it. And if it requires me a password to get into it, I'm not getting into it. I know a lot of coaches also think that. Like maybe it's gotten easier. The process has gotten easier where they don't have to log into something. They can just send them a link, or maybe they are connecting a little bit better. But I know that for me, trying to become the next tier up in being competitive for a conference title, we're not as interested in NCSA kids, but some coaches do. There's a whole middle ground of coaches that use NCSA religiously to shop for kids. But I think that it may lose its personal intimacy in helping the kid get to know the program. It, like you said, I think it's perfect for searching the pool of what might be a match.
Yes.
But then what?
Exactly. And that's a big recruiting mistake to rely on those platforms to get recruited. I think families think, it's going to do its job. It's going to do the job for me. And it's just really not true. So the way I teach recruiting too is like, what's the easiest thing for the college coach? And let's go at it that way. 2-page email, not easy on the college coach. An email that's, to the point, but also shows that you didn't copy and paste and you're genuinely interested. Let's do that instead. Let's send it directly to them. Let's make our highlights, put them on YouTube, for example, versus Huddle. Huddle has a lot of ads. YouTube has less ads. Instagram now is huge for highlights and things like that. And I think it's ease of access. So what's going to be easiest on the college coach? That's my job to figure that out and then tell you what to do.
Gotcha. Now, in terms of getting recruited and being seen, are you still doing combines and stuff like that? I know you were into organizing combines for colleges to come watch players. Is combine still a good idea?
Yeah. I think combines, again, I know volleyball, so I can't speak to all sports. I feel like every recruiting culture for every sport is
we're just talking about volleyball here anyway. We don't care about football or basketball.
Okay, perfect. So volleyball. I find them to be incredibly effective at getting exposure for the athlete and then creating connection with those college programs and college coaches. The way the recruiting rules are set up, which I'm sure we'll get into, really limits any kind of face-to-face interaction or any ability for athletes and coaches to get to know each other before June 15th, before their junior year. So these college camps is kind of what I call them. These college camps kind of allow the athlete and the coach to pull back the curtain a little bit on each other and see what is it that I liked about working with this coach or this athlete? What is it that I didn't like? And just really creating that connection is so valuable. And so, I think I'm still running them. I do one for a Division I sole purpose. What am I trying to say?
Division
I. Yeah, only Division I coaches come in. And then I do a few others for high academic kids. So D3 schools, where college coaches from the East Coast fly in, come to California, an athlete's able to get in front of 10 to 12 East Coast high academic schools, D3 schools mostly, and get in front of them versus having to fly all the way to the East Coast and spend, maybe 2 weeks of your summer and only get in front of 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
So it's just efficient too.
Yeah, that is super efficient. Now, is the difference between a combine and a showcase whether the college coach is actually coaching the athlete or just watching the athlete?
So I find most college camps, if college coaches are coming to clubs or something like it to to be at a camp, they're usually going to be giving feedback, and there's going to be a lot more interaction with the athletes. Showcases, I usually kind of define those as the showcases that take place before large tournaments, where it's going to be really rep heavy, not very feedback heavy. So you might have some club coaches that have volunteered or maybe even gotten paid to toss balls and chip balls, and you're just really showcasing skills. There might be some kind of play at the end where girls are mixed up, and they might try and even out courts, competitiveness wise and skills wise. And then college coaches are there browsing. So I think it's a lot different than getting feedback from a college coach.
Okay. Are there some that are better to go to than others? I hear a lot of I get a lot of questions through my private lessons and stuff like, hey, they're having this combine at this place. Should I go to this one or should I go to that? Like, how do you choose which ones to go to?
I might get some hate from this, but I think the ones from the big companies are less worth than the ones that are like at clubs. Oh, so it's very rare that I've heard a college coach or an athlete be like, oh, I went to this showcase before a big qualifier, and that's how the coach found me. The coach found you probably because you were sending emails, you were reaching out, you were sending them highlight film, and then maybe you told them I'm going to be at the showcase, so they went to watch you at the showcase. Versus from the college camps, like I have connections randomly made all the time there where college coaches are like, I really like this kid, I saw her at camp, or vice versa, where the girl's like, I really liked this coach, I enjoyed learning from them at camp, so therefore I'm going to keep pursuing them and keep emailing them. So I think that the smaller in terms of who's putting it on, if it's more grassroots, I think it's actually way more effective.
Okay. All right. Good feedback.
Yeah.
I know that's a big question that a lot of coaches get, and deciphering how do I get the most bang for my buck?
Yes.
And which ones kids get sent so many invites to things that it's hard to tell which ones are blanket invites and which ones they were personally invited to.
Exactly.
So that's good to
And
to
I think
break down.
Camps on college campuses are super valuable and effective still.
When should they be going to those though?
So if we're talking about any D1 bound prospects, they should definitely be going to those 8th grade, summer after 8th grade, summer after 9th grade, and then summer before junior year, so summer after sophomore year, you're probably going to those camps to figure out where it is that you want to go. It's like it's not an official or unofficial visit because they're not allowed to take those until August 1st.
Right.
But it's a pretty good preview of what you could be signing up for if you do go to those camps. So if you're a D1 bound student athlete, summer before freshman year and summer before sophomore year are so vital to get on college campuses and go to these camps. Other athletes, D2, D3, same thing. I would still recommend that they go, 8th grade, 9th grade, but their most vital summers are probably going to be summer before sophomore year and summer before junior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
These summer camps, I know because I've ran several of them, they're expensive.
Yes.
So considering the cost of college summer camps, some of them are overnight, they're more expensive. Some of them are just drop-in day camps. Should student athletes that are looking to go to a specific college or are in a pool of colleges, are they doing one camp per summer
they're doing quite a few camps per summer. I think it's average maybe 2 or 3 camps per summer if you want to play in college. The way I like to recommend is don't go to the same type of school's camp back to back. So if somebody's interested, if somebody's like, I don't really know if I like a small private school or if I like a big public school, awesome, go to those kind of camps. Go to a school that's offering a small private school's camp, see what it's like there, see what the campus environment's like, does it feel different, what do you like about it, and then go to a big state school camp and see, what do I like about this? And now you have something to compare and contrast, which is going to help you learn about what you like and don't like and help you make a better informed decision for your future. So I think it's about being strategic and then also choosing camps at schools that you're going to be more likely to get recruited to. So not a lot of girls are going to go to Stanford's volleyball camp and get recruited from it. Very, very few. If you want to go to Stanford volleyball camp for the experience and for fun and to maybe, have a taste of what it would be like to play there, awesome, do it. It's probably not going to progress your recruiting process versus if you spent that time, money, resources, and maybe you're more of a mid-major kind of kid going to a camp like UC Davis might be way more effective for you in your recruiting process.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And speaking in terms of trying to make a good informed decision, these decisions are in an effort so that we don't end up in the transfer portal.
Yes.
So I want to get into the meat of what we actually came, why I brought you here.
Yeah.
I brought you here because one of your Instagram posts stood out, and it's probably going viral at this point.
So scary.
But I saw that's what Instagram posts are supposed to do, right?
Right. I know, exactly. It's good. Compel and repel.
So correct me because I remember the gist of the post, but we'll go ahead and get into it. The post was about Taylor Landfair, and she transferred from Minnesota to Nebraska, and the rippling effect that has. And the post was basically like, why does a kid like that, who is a Big Ten Player of the Year a couple years ago, need to transfer to another place? And that displaces, like Nebraska. John Cook's got his hands full because now he's got like 5 All-American outside hitters, and they played in a national championship match.
Right.
Losing doesn't matter. They played in it. So the players that are already there, like, they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of Taylor going to Nebraska specifically, and those rippling effects that now it displaces 2 of the other, maybe even 3 of the other outside hitters, because one of them I think already transferred somewhere else.
She's in the portal. Yeah, I don't know if she's announced where she's going.
Yeah, but it pushes it shifts everything around.
Well, and it affects the recruiting classes too, right? It affects the girls that have committed
Yes.
to go and play there. Now, you thought I might have a chance to play my freshman year potentially if I'm an outside, and just kidding, the Big Ten Player of the Year is now in that position. So it affects the incoming girls too, which is crazy. Nobody's really thinking about them either.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
They kind of get forgotten in the shuffle of coaches reaching in the pot and trying to pull in some kid that's going to help them win the championship. But you were already pretty close. So what was the need?
Yeah, and that's why I say in that reel, I say the next level is gnarly. So part of my intent in posting that was to illustrate the need, and this is where the life coaching stuff comes in, but to illustrate the need for athletes to be prepared if that's what that's where they have their eyes set, right? If I have a lot of high schoolers following me, that might be the level that they want to play at. So letting them know what they can expect, but also urging the parents to prepare their daughters for that, because that's kind of the direction the college sports is going. Somebody wrote on the comments, it's a dog eat dog world and we're all wearing Milk-Bone underwear, which apparently is like from Cheers or something. Okay. I don't know. I didn't get the reference, but I thought that was hilarious. So it was me wanting to urge the parents, like, hey, if your daughter's got her eyes set on these levels, like, we need to be mentally preparing her for the challenges that are going to be coming with that, because here's the situation. There was 2 starting outside hitters who led their team to a national championship match. Yes, they didn't win, but now their positions are being threatened because the Big Ten Player of the Year, 2 years prior, is now transferring in. So and I'm not saying, some people are like, saying, oh, you don't know if that's how this, Allie Batenhorst, who ended up in the well, maybe she transferred. Yeah, I don't really know why she transferred, but from my perspective, I would be thinking, is it not enough? Is it not enough to get to the national championship match, and now I'm already being replaced? And that was one example and one illustration to show what's happening, because it's happening in multiple programs at the Power 4 level now. And, same thing at Texas. There was a freshman setter who won the national championship at Texas, and now Texas is bringing in a transfer junior from Baylor who is apparently a pretty good setter. So I was just looking at it going like, wow, if thinking about my experience as a college athlete, if I wasn't prepared for that, and if I was putting my worth in getting my team to the championship match and being a starting outside hitter and, all my accolades and things I had done up to that point, that could be a really low blow and really devastating to my identity. I don't know if that's true for her, right. but I don't think it's a far stretch to say that it is potentially like a really difficult thing to manage when you're 20 years old.
Yeah, true. And I think that in talking about, Taylor specifically, she wrote a 2 or 3 page dissertation on why she was making the transfer, and I have it on my phone. I'll read it in a second. But do you think it's a mentality that they don't consider that they're leaving when they leave a program? When you enter the transfer portal, you're leaving your team in a different chemistry. You're leaving the coach in a different chemistry. Like you're disrupting where you were and disrupting where you're going. And sometimes that's for the better. I get it. Sometimes it's necessary.
Right.
There's all kinds of reasons that kids transfer. There's coaching changes. There's abuse. There's just I'm not happy. There's all kinds of things.
Well, and there's
like
also
that.
the COVID year, which I get. Like everybody's got this.
We're gonna wash that whole thing out because that just didn't count. Those 2 years just didn't count at all.
Right. Okay.
So besides that, like, is it like the mentality of the transfer portal is an option, and if I'm not happy, I can just go somewhere else and disrupt a lot of things. Yeah. Is that a mentality that you see with kids that you talk to?
So I think it's interesting because the transfer portal, from what I understand about it, it was designed to be able to help athletes, right? So that if they were in a position where there was abuse or they're legit not happy, then they would have an out without having any kind of consequences. So same thing with some of these recruiting rules. Like, I think the premise behind it is good, and like the intention is good. Now the ramifications of it are a different story, which is kind of what we're talking about now. So I think that, like, you know, from a life coaching perspective, I've worked with girls that have transferred and wanted to transfer. And for me, what I try and encourage them to do is, everybody has like circumstances in their life. Is this a circumstance that you need to get away from because you can't manage your mind around it, because there's abuse, or there's depression, or there's animosity amongst your teammates, and you don't want to have to every single day work really hard to be in a good place mentally to navigate that? Or is this something that the circumstance is pretty neutral and you can choose to manage your mind around it in a different way? Because either way, like we're talking about, there's consequences, right? Like, yes, I can say the grass is greener, but transferring into a new program, like moving across the country, you know, there's discomfort in that, even though the grass is greener, and there's also discomfort in staying. So if I were, you know, her life coach, I would just make her aware of, like, hey, either way, you're going to be experiencing discomfort here. Either way, it's going to be challenging. You get to choose what's best for you. But the flip side of that is, as athletes, when you think about the team, right, it's not all about us all the time. And so, it's a fine line between doing what's best for me and doing what's best for the team. And again, I would go back to, like, well, what's the healthiest choice for you? And do you like your reasons for transferring? If you're transferring because there's more money or more playing time, and this is the discomfort involved, and these are, you know, the discomfort you're going to cause, do you still like your reasons for it? If so, great, do it. But if not, then let's go back and re-examine, do I like my reasons for what I'm choosing to do? And if not, why? You know, like fear-based reasons, or you know, like, you just have to get down to, like, what am I valuing is really what it comes down to. And can I have my own back in this as people talk about it, you know, and as I'm entering a new team, and really getting down to, like, who you are and why you're making the choices that you are.
Well, not necessarily. I don't want to, you know, harp on Taylor, you know, too much, because she made her decisions for whatever reasons that she made them. But just for as an example, she says that she got recruited by Hugh, and she bought into Hugh's philosophy, and she wanted to be coached by Hugh, and Hugh was going a good direction. Hugh, although it was unexpected that he left the program, he's still at Minnesota. He's an assistant AD there now. So he's still around. He still has influence. And Keegan, who they brought in, is a fantastic person. He's a great coach. He was at Washington before, did a good job there. He just he leveled up to a different program for whatever reasons. He chose Minnesota. But she had played, and according to her little thank you letter or announcement, she said that she had played for him for a whole season, and then at the end of that season, she decided that it just wasn't a fit anymore. So it kind of leads me to believe, you know, back what you were saying with the reason that you transfer matters. And while I also agree that it's not really for us to judge their reasons, but it is becoming a thing where we kind of have to judge our reasons, because you're disrupting this, and the lesson and the message along the way is muffled. It's like, what message are we giving kids that if it's just not a fit anymore, Like,
Yeah.
can you go through, if you're just not happy, I find happiness in the problem solving part. Like, can I get through this? This is uncomfortable for me, and I don't particularly like this coach right now. But this is something that if I can work through and get to the end of it, I'm actually kind of proud of myself for getting through that. And that makes me happy again. Now I've got another tool that I can use. That's part of your identity.
You become as you do hard things.
Yes.
Like, so, and same thing with, the transferring, with Taylor transferring. Like, I could choose to stay, and I could choose to manage my mind and get through something and, overcome this obstacle and who I get to become as I do that. Like, that's really the reward,
Yes.
but also, in terms of, and that was it's funny, full circle, because that was the whole point of my reel, is like, we need to teach our athletes to like focus on who it is that they're becoming as they do hard things. And that's ultimately the reward. Nobody can take that away from you. Like, if you are, go to a national championship match and you're the starter and you did, so many things, worked your way into the starting spot, overcame so many challenges and obstacles along the way, like, that person who did that is yours to keep forever, starting position or not, having somebody else come in or not. So that's where your worth and value lies. But they need to be aware of, like, am I switching because this is uncomfortable and I just don't want to get uncomfortable? So I think this could be more comfortable for me. Or am I up for the challenge and who I'm going to have to be as I rise to the occasion? And that's really the reward, national championship or not.
And I just have to sometimes wonder, like, if it is in fact a generational thing or a parenting thing as we're bringing up this new generation of players. Because I remember personally, a personal story from mine, you may get a laugh out of this because, well, you toured with John, but you never played for John, but you know who John is. He's very, like, kind of calm, collected, he's a legend coach. He's always had his stuff together. But I think it was my junior, maybe even senior year, that we had played Stanford when Stanford had just won the national championship. They were on the path to win the next championship, and they were Goliath. They were the big dog, and we played them on a Friday or Saturday at home at Pacific, and we beat them in 4. And I actually, Carrie Walsh came flying out of the back row, hit a back row attack, and I solo blocked her for match point. That's my claim to fame now because she became Carrie Walsh.
Funny.
But the next, I think it was a Tuesday, it was like 3 days later, we had a non-conference, like we always scrimmage or play Sac State at some point. Just for fun because they're close to us. And we played at Sac State, and after having a massive win and walking away like we are untouchable, we go to Sac State and get our butts kicked in 3. And that meeting, after the game was over, I remember going into a classroom and John became not so John. And I remember a desk, or is either a desk or a chair that had gotten kicked to the opposite side of the room.
Was that a character for him?
Oh man, but when we got on the bus to go home, we weren't like plotting his demise. Like, we weren't gonna go, we're gonna go to the AD because that's abusive. And I need to transfer because I'm scared now. Like, we didn't think that. So that's what makes me wonder, like, where is this coming from? This new need to, like, just be happy. I mean, I get parents are telling kids the goal of life is to be happy. You should always be happy. And you should always be happy. But if you don't let yourself get into situations where you have to figure it out and go through the bumps and maybe be, depressed or down for a while and build the tools to get out of it, like that can also make you happy and turn the situation for you so that you don't have to leave or abandon it. Like, do we do that in marriages?
Right.
That's a life thing to me.
I know. So one of those, I hinted to like some concepts that kind of like blew my mind when I was getting into life coaching. And one of them is that no matter what you accomplish or achieve, life is always going to be 50-50. So I could win a national championship. I could be Michael Phelps. I could win 9 gold medals. That doesn't all of a sudden mean like I upgraded my life to 60% awesome and 40% not so awesome. even with all those accolades, even if you're a millionaire, like life is still going to be 50% awesome emotions and 50% amazing things and 50% challenging, emotions and 50% really crappy things. And it doesn't matter what you accomplish or what you achieve.
Right.
That's the makeup of life. And that gives me peace, because when I think about that, I think it helps us stay in the present moment, and that like, hey, this is just life. Like what I do or how it's going right now, if I overcome this or if I transfer, doesn't mean that, life's going to get 55% better. It means I'm just changing my circumstances. Guess what? It's still going to be challenging. It's still going to be amazing. Yeah. And so I think that knowing that helps you live in the present moment a little bit more, and like being grateful and thankful for that contrast, right? Because if I didn't have the lows, then I wouldn't know the highs either. So if we were 90% happy all the time, then how would we even know we're happy? Because we don't experience anything else.
Yeah,
so
your gauge is off.
Yeah, so it's like that appreciation of just, this is life, and this is what comes with it, and doing the best we can with it, but never choosing different circumstances or wanting to achieve things just because it like all of a sudden, increases that percentage of happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I've kind of moving along from the Taylor Landfair transfer thing. That was a player's perspective. There's a lot, I'm in these coaching threads on Facebook, and they're very interesting because there's a lot of good points. I'm learning a lot, actually. And Gino, the head coach of the UConn women's basketball team, came on social media and said, it's very difficult to coach in this culture because I don't know if the kids are going to stay or if I'm going to be coaching this team for 3 years or for 2 years or for 1 year. Like I can't work in this environment. And some of the comments, I don't know if I'll read all of them, but I pulled up some of the comments from that thread, and it was kind of split where some people thought, and these are all coaches talking about another coach, where it was split. That it's the coach's job to make the kids happy. It's the coach's job. Like if your kids aren't happy in your program, you're not doing a good job. And others were like, oh, Gino, he's an old school mentality coach. He's from the old school coaching, like from punishments, or they would make their kids, do suicides until they vomited. And so that's an old school method of coaching. We don't do that anymore because you can't do that anymore. So is it time? What's your thoughts on?
Yeah, my thoughts are
old school coaching. Like,
well, in regards to like a coach's job is to make somebody happy. Like, I rest in that I'm in charge of my own emotions. Like nobody else is in charge of my emotions and how I respond to things. I think we get in a lot of trouble in relationships when we expect somebody else to make us happy, because they never are. Like they're going to do amazing things. They're going to do disappointing things. They're human. Like nobody can ever fulfill that for you. And so I rest in, and this is what I encourage my athletes too, and people I work with, is like, you're responsible for you. Yes. So if you're not happy, your coach isn't making you happy, like you need to dig deep and figure out like how you can change your perspective. What can you be thinking differently to cause more positive emotions? Or again, if it's a situation where it's just incredibly hard to manage your mind around a certain coach or around a certain person, then that's maybe would dictate a need for a change in circumstances, right?
Or just talk to the coach, or just go into the office and communicate.
Exactly. Yes.
That can be either a hard or an easy conversation, but it's still nonetheless a conversation should be had with the person you're headbutting first before you just 100%. Decide I'm leaving.
I mean, that is pretty bizarre that they can't. I mean, that's just an easy out, right? Like, they don't even have to have those conversations if they don't want to. But I would just encourage all the athletes, like, it's not your parents' job, not your coach's job, not your boyfriend's job, not your sister's job, grandma. Like, it's not anybody's job to make you happy. You're in charge of your own emotions. And once you step into that, like, that's pure emotional adulthood. Like, it's very empowering too, because like nobody can make you feel anything ever. It's all how you're choosing to think that's making you feel certain ways.
Yeah, for sure. There's other coaches that are in that have brought up along the same lines of being in the transfer portal. Kirsten, who is the coach at Creighton, came on, and she's not as old school. She's young, and she says that there's a lot of youngish coaches that are still kind of against the transfer portal. And I get that there's a lot of athletes that like Madison Skinner, who is pro transfer portal. She came from the portal. So in those cases, it can be a benefit if used properly. But I think that Kirsten's perspective was, this is a bad look for us, for volleyball. Basketball and football, they've been doing their revenue sports, like they have a different set of rules, a different set of expectations for themselves as a sport culture than volleyball does. This isn't really us. Like these conversations should be being had before the kids transfer. Why can't we talk about it? Because we need to be better than this. And coaches reaching into the portal and snatching kids out, either borderline illegally or not legally.
Like, you mean reaching out before they're actually in the portal?
Yes, before they're in the portal. Because some kids, they enter the portal, the next day they're committed.
Right.
It's like, okay, how did that happen? So we know that there's some conversations being had that maybe are not upfront. Maybe not necessarily illegal or bad, but just finding the loopholes, which is sneaky. And maybe that's how they have to get things done. I don't know, because I wasn't coaching when I
think it's the pressure, right? The pressure that some of these I want to say Power 5, but the poor Pac-12 is dead. So are we calling it the Power 4 now?
Right, yeah.
Is it the Power 4 conferences?
Yeah, sure. Maybe Power 5. There's some good schools in 5 of them.
Okay, true. Okay, so I'll keep. I haven't known like what the reference is for that now that the Pac-12 isn't around, which is
too much
sad.
change.
Yeah.
Too much change.
I mean, the pressure that they're under to develop winning programs and get the athletes that are going to help them win. Like, I'm not making an excuse for them, but if it's written into your contract, you know that you need to go to the Final Four within the next 5 years. It makes sense to. And I don't know who, but I know.
Yeah.
I know that there are contracts out there. I'm not saying it's Texas or Nebraska or anything,
right.
but like you're going to do what you got to do to keep your job. And there's also fan bases. I mean, I think like fan bases and the pressure that come with that of like pleasing the fans, and you throw social media into that mix where fans can chat very freely about what they think about the program and the players and where their direction's headed.
Which adds pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think, I mean, for me, hearing her comment just makes me think like, yeah, we're better than this, but like we're doing this, I think, because of the pressure of sports, the pressure to perform, and what's the expectations, I think, that have been placed on some of these coaches' shoulders.
Right, but when do we hold our integrity in volleyball and not fold to pressure, like as they're asking us to do? They're asking, in one breath, they're saying we need volleyball to be, or we need humanness to come back, and we need relationships and connections to come back. In the same breath, they're saying you need to win, it doesn't matter with who.
Right.
So there's two different messages being sent out here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would guess that like you're going to align with. If I'm a job, and I can't speak for them, I've never coached at a Power 5 school, but I would guess that like whatever you're up for or whatever messaging you're up for is like the school that you're going to coach at and align with. So if you don't like the dog eat dog, then don't coach in the Power 4 or Power 5. Maybe that's not, maybe the coaches who it doesn't appeal for, they'll stop taking those positions. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and one of the arguments that came up about the transferring was kind of geared more towards, they were talking about the players, but in defense of the players, like, well, coaches up and leave. Like they don't have to, if there was a portal for coaches, like we can up and leave also. So there's definitely two sides to the opinion and the benefits of the portal, but it's the integrity part and the reputation part and the grooming part of young women coming into volleyball that concerns me the most. I'm like, who are we breeding and growing into our sport that is their moral compass off, that transferring is just the easy option, they can just do that? Or can we teach them to stick with it, like you're saying, and hire people like you to help them through this whole process so that they can make better decisions and be more prepared going into their decisions. So from a recruiting timeline, I guess,
so it's like,
because it's sped up and we're trying, I don't know if they're trying to speed up the recruiting process or prolong it so that they make better decisions, but because they keep changing the rules of recruiting. But does the timeline affect?
So I think, like, as you were talking, like, I think that the recruiting timeline plays a factor too. And the way that some of these coaches are recruiting at the Power 5 level is same pressure filled on the kid, and she's not having a ton of time to be able to make a decision. But to kind of backtrack a little bit, before the recruiting rules changed, I don't know if it was 3 or 4 years ago, but around then, athletes, if you are a top volleyball athlete, you're committing freshman year, sophomore year, and making a big decision, when you're 15, 16. Yeah. And then two, like, you're not even fully developed yet. So it's like, it was all kind of like a gamble, I think, on the coach's part and on the athlete's part, but it was happening. And so the NCAA came in and kind of cracked down on that. And they said, okay, you're not allowed to have any recruiting contact with prospective student athletes until June 15th, but for their junior year for D1 and D2 schools. So it's, again, one of those things where the intent behind it's great. Like, let's give these girls longer time to be able to make a decision, be of an older age, develop a little bit more before they have to go in and, make a decision in a couple days. So what that's done, though, is it's like drawn like this huge dark curtain that you don't even know who's going to be potentially calling you. There's restrictions around how much interest coaches can express. You don't know who's going to be calling you on that June 15th date. You don't know what the offer's going to look like. And sometimes these offers come with, hey, I'm offering you today and 2 other girls. The first one that commits gets it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's happening at the Power 5 level. That's what some of these coaches are doing.
I believe it.
I was working with an athlete, and she was stoked to get an offer from a school, and I said, did you ask if it was exclusive? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, you need to ask and ask, am I the only athlete that you're offering, and how long do I have to decide? Called the coach back, and the coach was like, no, it's not exclusive. We're offering the next girl tomorrow, but we still want to have you on a visit and stuff. Like, she's probably going to come on a visit too, but whoever wants it gets it. Is kind of the take. Or sometimes it's, this is yours until you're able to come to camp, and then we want a decision after camp. Or, we'll wait for you to be able to take an official visit after August 1st, but after that, we're going to want to know. So
that's good insight by you. That's a really important question to ask, because it does make a huge difference on the pressure end of it.
Yeah. And if it was a school she wanted and she just thought, I have time to take a visit, and the other girl takes it, now she's left going, what happened? And like super disappointed. So
well, and also leading up to that, if you have this dream school and that dream school does call, and you don't expect that they were going to call, or let alone they were going to offer you that day and then say, we're offering 2 other girls, take it or not, which is, good strategy, I guess, if you need to get a commitment right there.
Yeah.
But how do kids know if they're not allowed to talk to the coach, they're not allowed to talk to the player? Like, how do they don't. Unofficial visits like galore? Like, what?
No. So
how do you get to know the program without having access to the program?
Regarding the visits, so athletes aren't allowed to take official visits, meaning the school's paid for it. They're not allowed to take official visits until August 1st of their senior year, before their senior year. I guess it just depends when their senior year starts. Or take unofficial visits, meaning pay their own way to see the school until that date as well.
It seems like the only way I see this working out is if they make the rules so that you can't commit, you can't sign until after you've had your official visit.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Because if you're committing, if you're waiting to commit until you've made your official visits, which is what we did when I was being recruited. Like, I took 3 out of my 5. And it was after that process that you were able to make your decision, because you spent a whole weekend on campus doing all the campus things with all the student athletes and going to a classroom, listening to the professors. Like, you can really get into it. But they stopped doing that. By the time I had coached at Davis, the official visits were happening after they've already committed to us. So now it's just like, congratulations, it was, good for us. Let's have a big weekend for you.
Totally.
But it wasn't part of their decision-making process.
No. And that, it's a valid point, but then I guess I would say, like, well, these are all verbal commitments, right? So it's like, who's to say you're not they can't zip their lips. But it's like, people honestly, like, I have conversations with coaches, like, coaches don't like it either. They don't like having to offer kids that they barely know. They don't the pressure. The girls, it does not benefit the athlete at all. And so everybody's just kind of wondering, like, what do we do with it? How do we change the landscape of it? So I have something I'm doing. It's kind of like a be the change you want to see sort of thing, because I think that who this benefits is the college coaches and the programs more, because they're able to position offers in a way that gets girls to commit. The athlete either commits out of desperation, fear, thinking, oh my gosh, nothing else is going to come for me, so they're not even given the option to weigh their options. So I have a group I'm starting for the D1 bound, prospect and their families too. It's for the athlete that's kind of nervous about what's to come, doesn't know what to expect, is overwhelmed, and has a pretty good idea that she will be receiving some kind of Division I offers. And it's going to be the place to be where they can get information on the recruiting process. So know how these offers go down. So what I just shared about, offers not being exclusive is one recruiting tactic. We're going to be talking about a lot more inside so that they're just more empowered and prepared to know what to expect. And also, what kind of questions should you be asking college coaches on a phone call? Like, is this offer exclusive? And rather than asking, what's your team culture like, and very fluffy questions, it can be more like, who represents the team culture best on your team, to get them to think a little bit more. And now you can follow that athlete and maybe see what she's all about. So it's really just meant to empower families to be able to develop confidence in the recruiting process, get clarity, and then be able to make a decision on their own terms.
That sounds amazing. That is exactly what we need. That's
Thanks.
exactly what we need to be doing. I think that combined with some other legislative type things or adjustments in the timeline can help minimize the pressure and start helping our kids make better decisions for themselves. How can people find out about your group?
I have a website, www.heysusank.com. It'll be there. It's going to be launching in February. And also follow me on Instagram, hey.susan.k. So you can find me there. I'll be launching it in February. But it's really, I want to swing the direction I want to give the athletes more power. So it's going to be called the Empowered Prospect Network.
Prior to getting to college.
Yeah, prior to getting into college, so that they know what to expect, so that they're not, at the whim of their own fears or the whim of these crazy offers that get thrown their direction, and also have a community where they can connect with each other, because it can be really lonely at the top it's not easy to complain to a friend that has no offers that you don't know what to do with your three.
Totally.
So I think that they're in a really unique situation, and it's just for support for them and their parents, and giving them information and access to information and insights that will help them make a more informed decision.
Awesome. That is good stuff.
Thanks.
And that's probably a great place to wrap up. I think that's a brilliant thing to be doing. It's exactly what we need.
Thank you. I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for the course of your business.
Thank you.
If we can connect on anything, let's do it.
Awesome.
So thanks for coming. I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was really great. I feel like we could chat for hours.
I know. We probably could, because
we'll have to do it again.
Volleyball people just talk volleyball
right?
all the time.
Volley dorking.
So, thank you.
Yes.
That is a term that I haven't heard. I use it all the time, and people look at me like, what'd she say?
Yeah.
Like, volley dorking.
Yeah, volley dorking.
When we talk volleyball all the time.
Totally, exactly. It's just fun. It's still
awesome.
world. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you.
It is, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the views on the Sports Idol podcast. I am Addie Hochschild with Sports Idol Nation. Sports is in our DNA, and we hope it's in yours too.